Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for inviting me. Ed, thanks for the nice comments when you were up here, and Bill, thank you so much. And it's interesting to find that I have to come to LA to see my San Diego friends Jonathan and Michael, who's back there somewhere, I came with him to that meeting in Los Angeles that you were talking about. I'm thrilled to be here, and I really, really want to thank you for letting me be part of this. I have a great deal of respect for the Conrad Hilton Foundation, in particular after hearing about the report and the data that we need to make our case to policymakers to do good pieces of legislation and to try to make a difference. So I saw you as an incredible resource that I could use in the work that I wanted to do in Sacramento. You know, 70 years ago, when Conrad Hilton started the foundation, no one really knew for sure what the world was going to look like. The world was still at war in 1944, and though the first German city was captured by American troops 70 years ago this week, there was still a long fight ahead and an uncertain future after that. So launching a philanthropic endeavor to, as Conrad Hilton later put it in his will, relieve the suffering, the distressed, and the destitute proved visionary at that time. And there's something very appropriate about a fortune built by offering affluent people temporary places to stay now being used to help vulnerable people find permanent places to live. So, of course, in addition to its own resources, the Hilton Foundation has also done a great job in generating increased attention from across the private sector to the effort to end homelessness. And that's critical and that's key to the work that you do. The foundation has played a major role in the development of funders together to end homelessness and has been very effective at bringing about a deeper understanding of housing first and permanent supportive housing as proven solutions to end chronic homelessness. In fact, I recall I was on the San Diego City Council as a committee member on land use and housing when Saman Ruff of CSH explained the concept to those of us on the City Council. So I appreciate that relationship. I appreciate that education. What the Hilton Foundation has achieved locally has a ripple effect nationally, and I think that's also an important thing to understand. Funders Together members have invested over $200 million in the pursuit of ending homelessness and have funded innovative demonstration programs in housing first, permanent supportive housing, rapid family rehousing, and systems change work that have become best practice models. And that systems change work is really important. And it's important you understand it because you're the ones that educate us in the elected and public sector about what that means and how you have to move. Government is slow to react. And so the work that you do in that regard is really important. You know, on January 22nd of this year, when my colleagues did select me to be Speaker of the Assembly, 2 days later, I was out on the streets of San Diego taking part again in the annual survey of homelessness for individuals in our community, the point in time count. And the media made a really big deal out of it. Speaker takes to the streets. Well, we should all take to the streets. Why it's important to have Conrad Hilton Foundation, the business community, private sector, and the Speaker of the California State Assembly do that and talk about it is because that's the only way we're going to make a difference, to make sure that our friends in the business community, private sector, understand what the advocates have been trying to get us to do to come along. And so it's a partnership. And I think it's really important. Whenever I speak to allies in the effort to end homelessness, one of the points I emphasize is that because a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work and won't work, we have to build on and improve relationships between all the groups that work with those who struggle with homelessness and poverty. And that includes our veterans community, mental health and health advocates, child welfare, law enforcement. That's just a few of the folks we need to be partners with. We have to bring people out of their silos, and we know those silos exist, and increase partnerships to be more effective. And we talk about law enforcement and veterans. I work in both of those communities, and I see clearly the silos and how if we would come together, and it's happening, but the silos do exist. but it also means we need to be bringing resources to the table to address the multiple needs. And I got to admit, we're really afraid to bring our resources to the table, because what does it mean if we try a new approach, if we try to be innovative, if we try to figure out how to work together? I remember when my spouse Jennifer and I, who introduced me to Bill, when we were trying to kick off the San Diego leadership team on homelessness, we were trying to pull together the city, the county, advocates, public sector, police, paramedics, you know, the whole group of people that you should have at the table to talk about this. And people were afraid to go first. If the city put resources on the table, what was the county going to do? If the county put resources, the hospitals were absolutely frightened. And so it was a barrier. It was really hard to do that. And so we need to put our resources on the table, and that is sometimes the hardest part, because when one starts to put resources and someone else says, I have this and I have that. And that's been a little bit our experience in San Diego, and certainly we have a long way to go there. But it's something we're really proud that we've been able to finally break those barriers of nobody wanting to come together and saying it's really your responsibility, it's yours, and not really being willing to put stuff on the table. You know, my former Assembly colleague and current State Senator Holly Mitchell of Los Angeles authored, which I'm sure you're all aware, AB 361 in 2013 to take advantage of an Affordable Care Act option that offers states 90% of federal funding for health home services. Now, I also recall a couple years ago in D.C., we were talking about the idea of making those resources available as it relates to housing and health homes. It includes case management, outreach, engagement, and other services homeless people need to access and maintain housing stability. And my understanding is the state is currently in the process of figuring out how to implement health homes, and hopefully this will be a resource to provide services in support of housing in the very near future. And I promise you I will continue working with Holly Mitchell to push that from our side in the Assembly as well. As we focus on comprehensive solutions to address homelessness, we need to explore more options like AB 361. And with the state realigning resources down to local level, there's a new opportunity to combine law enforcement, mental health, child welfare, and other locally controlled resources in a more comprehensive way. I mentioned this a few weeks ago at the SCAMP conference up here. I'm going to continue to seek solutions at the state level to better leverage, increase, and connect the local funds. And we did have some important successes this year, and I know you're aware of it, but I'll just comment quickly. The state budget includes $100 million in general fund dollars for affordable housing, including $50 million each for multifamily rental housing and permanent supportive housing. That's critical. It's not a lot, but it's enough to keep working at this, and it's important that it's visible. Another victory was our being able to get $20 million in the budget for a new program to provide rapid rehousing for CalWORKs families that are homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. And those grants were just awarded, or at least I saw a list that said which counties were going to receive those funds. And it's going to be something I want to evaluate how that works, and I'll need to hear from those of you involved what you think about that program, because we are moving into yet another budget cycle, and we need to know if that's a kind of resource we should look at. The passage of Proposition 41, of course, will provide money for affordable housing for veterans, multifamily housing, and permanent supportive housing, as well as transitional housing. $75 million in the first round, with the NOFA due out in November. And in January of this year, my legislation took effect that helps our state low-income housing tax credits better serve special needs populations. And I'm thrilled that this has increased the demand for the program and helped more Californians in need at the same time. So sometimes small change can really make a difference, and we've had to look at those small changes at the state level given our resources these last several years. But it is important, and we're going to continue to look at any efficiencies we can get out of existing programs and how to make it better. I was pleased to be joint author on the legislation that would waive the fee for homeless persons to obtain state identifications, a simple thing that shouldn't be so hard to pass. It's simple, common sense, a solution that removes a significant barrier for people who are homeless. Having an ID could result in increased benefits, and at the very least, it removes one of the many stresses that accompany homelessness. Even with these advances on homelessness and affordable housing, what we absolutely need is a permanent, sustainable source of funding. A permanent source would provide funding to address homelessness, including more money for the construction and rehabilitation of permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing of homeless individuals and families. You're all aware that the source of permanent funding, SB 391, we had hoped to get passed in the legislature this session, and that it wasn't able to move forward, but I was really proud to co-author that bill. And by placing a reasonable fee on documents recorded in real estate transactions, excluding home sales, the legislation would have brought stability to our affordable and supportive housing production pipeline and create a pay-as-you-go approach. Now, I know I said this and you've heard me say it, and you're going to hear me say it at every housing-related event I go to. I'm going to give that message because, unfortunately, we didn't have the 2/3 vote necessary to pass that legislation. But I remain committed, and it will be my top priority in this upcoming legislative session. We have a great deal of work to do. It will still need a 2/3 vote in both houses of the legislature, and due to the opposition of the state's Realtors Association, it's not going to be easy, even though I noted home sales are excluded. And I really don't think one special interest group should be able to prevent or hold up an important program which is going to fund affordable housing and permanent supportive housing in this state. So I intend to work with the Realtors to try to get their support because I believe it's important. And as I said several weeks ago, also at SCAMP, for those of you that were here, you know, there is this belief that as Speaker, I can get any bill passed or any bill killed. Well, in this case, it won't be that easy because of the opposition against 391. So I'm going to ask for two things. One, get your partners in the business sector to help elevate awareness of how important a permanent source of funding will be for affordable housing and homelessness. And it creates jobs. We did have some good business support. I think you know that as well. The LA Chamber of Commerce, the LA Business Council, the LA Business Leaders Task Force on Homelessness, all incredibly important support. But the more business support we get, the stronger we will be. And that can move many of my legislative colleagues. The second thing I would ask related to that is that the grantees and stakeholders here today stress to your LA-based legislators in the coming year the importance of a permanent source of funding for affordable housing and supportive housing. We will need your advocacy and any influence that I might have for us to be successful in this endeavor. It will be a fight, but for those of us who answered the call to work to end homelessness, to work to relieve the suffering, the distressed, and the destitute, it's really a fight worth having. Thank you.